Hello everyone, this is Breanna Rutter, author of over 14 hair care books and founder of HowToBlackHair.com. For this tutorial, I will be teaching you how to color a lace closure. This lace closure is a Mrs. Rutter's Virgin Extensions lace closure from MrsRutters.com. The materials you will need to dye your lace closure will be 1 box of permanent hair color. You will also need a dye brush, a bowl to store your hair dye, hair cutting scissors, 4 duckbill clips, a rat tail comb, a clean mascara wand, a pair of gloves, and you will also need a trash bag. So once you have all of your materials ready, I will walk you step by step through how to dye a lace closure. So now here we are with our station prepared. You want to make sure that you take your trash bag and you lay it over your table or area you will be working on so that you don't stain your table or the surrounding floor. After that, you want to make sure to prepare your hair dye so that you're ready to dye your closure and have all of your materials at hand ready. The clips will help you to keep the hair separate as you're working on dyeing the roots. And then also, you want to make sure to have your scissors nearby just in case you needed help with developing your dye as you were able to cut open any packets that were necessary. So first, to begin, I want to describe to you and tell you how important it is to make sure that you're dyeing this closure very, very carefully. Now, when you're dyeing a lace closure, it's very important that no hair dye drips onto the lace for a number of reasons. One is because it will actually stain the lace, and then when you're ready to install the lace, it will look like you have a black scalp versus a brown or tan looking scalp. So that's why it's very important that when you're dyeing a lace closure, that you actually dye the roots first before you dye the rest of the hair. This will give you your best control over making sure that you don't drip any dye onto your lace. So to begin, you want to make sure to part a very thin parting either on the left or right side of your lace closure so that you can begin dyeing. As you part, you want to use your clips to keep the hair out of the way, and you also want to make sure that you do not get hair dye on your clips as well. Now that you've gotten a small section of hair separate from the rest of the closure, this is the most crucial part because you're only going to be dyeing the roots of your hair on your entire closure before you actually dye the rest of the hair. So it's very important that you use this mascara wand to do so. Using a brush usually has a lot of drippage from the actual dye, and because the bristles are so big, it's very easy to accidentally smear the lace. So what you want to do is put a little bit of dye onto your mascara wand, and you want to make sure there's no drippage, because if there is any dye dripping from the bristles of your mascara wand, it will drip onto your closure. So you want to just smear off any excess dye inside of your bowl, and then you want to begin dyeing the roots of the hair. Now, I suggest that you start about 1/8 of an inch from the lace and then get a little closer as you're comfortable, but the goal is to just get as close to your roots as possible. So as you can see, there's been a thin line of hair parted on the side. You want to make your partings about this thin so that way you're able to saturate the hair through without touching your lace. So keep one of your hands, which you should use your less dominant hand to hold down your lace closure. And then you're going to use your dominant hand that's going to guide you with your clean mascara wand to actually dye your hair. So just use your dominant hand to push the hair over. And then what you're going to do is you're going to lightly stroke the roots of the hair without touching the closure. So a little bit of distance away from the closure is perfectly fine. If it helps you to get closer to the roots, you can also roll the mascara wand and then roll it back again. So press your mascara wand right on the hair root, and then you're going to roll it one direction and then roll it back to lift it back out. Now if you drag a little bit of hair out with you, that's perfectly fine because you have to dye off the hair anyway. But your main focus is just to concentrate on the roots of the hair, and then roll your mascara wand back out so that way you're dyeing the roots and not the lace. If you feel as though you didn't get close enough, that's perfectly fine. It's a lot better to go back in and get closer to dyeing the roots of the hair rather than getting too close and actually ruining your lace. And remember, if you get any dye on your lace at all, it's important that you immediately begin to wash it. Put shampoo on the spot, rub it with your fingers, and then rinse out the dye spot that you created. So now if you've satisfied with the work that you've done with coloring the roots of your small section, you're going to part a new section of hair, keep the hair clipped over, and begin doing the same thing. You want to dye the inside of all of your partings without touching the lace. When you finish dyeing the roots of all of your hair, it's best to go ahead and then color the rest with your brush, because now you don't need to worry about the fact of the lace. All you have to do is color the rest of the hair. So after you've dyed the roots of your closure, you will notice that the roots are significantly different from the rest of the hair, of course. And to make sure that you're not staining your lace closure or causing any dye to drip, you want to occasionally check the lace as you are applying it with the mascara wand. So after you're applying each section at a time, you want to make sure you flip your lace over and you want to check to see if you see any spots. Now, if you so happen to maybe get a few spots on the edge or maybe a few spots at the top through the lace, that's okay, just as long as it's not dye pressed into the lace. And also, if there's any lace that will be trimmed and you may have gotten a few tiny spots on it, it's perfectly fine. You just want to make sure that when you are looking at the lace, the section that will show your part does not have any dye within that area. So now that we've dyed all of the roots of the hair, you will then begin a section working from the back towards the front, chunks of hair, and then begin dyeing the rest of the hair with the brush. Now, as you're adding hair dye to your hair, you want to make sure that you are not doing so at the root. It's unnecessary. You've already covered the root, and the point of doing that first is so that you don't accidentally get dye on the root of the actual closure. So just start at the back, section off some hair, and begin dyeing the rest of the hair until you've covered all of your hair. Always make sure to start on the ends and then work your way up toward the root. Also, when you're sectioning the hair, it does not have to be neat. You just want to grab a very thin section so that when you're applying dye, you can actually saturate the hair all the way through. Also, to make sure that you're getting dye all the way through, it's a good tip to use your brush to open up your hair and then apply more hair dye. After you finish dyeing all of your hair, you want to make sure that you allow the hair process for the amount of time that your box instructions said to do so. That's usually anywhere between a half an hour to an hour. After your hair is processed, when you actually wash your hair, it's very important that you do not allow the dye to get in contact with the lace. So as you're rinsing all of the dye out of the hair, you want the water to run through the lace and then run down the hair. This will stop any dye from actually contacting the lace whatsoever. Now, if you submerge your lace closure in water, it will actually cause some of the dye to penetrate through the lace and tint the lace. So when you're rinsing, water has to flow through the lace and flow down the shaft of the hair, so that way dye does not actually touch the lace. After you rinse the dye out until it runs clear or almost clear, you will then proceed to shampoo and condition the hair as usual, and then allow it to air dry to finish your look. As you can see, this is the finished result of the closure once it has been dyed, shampooed, and air dried. As you notice, the hair has dyed beautifully and consistently, and also check out the lace closure. There are no black dye spots on the closure whatsoever. That's why using my technique of the mascara wand is so important, because you will literally just part your hair anywhere you want, and then you will use a little bit of dye on your mascara wand to dye the roots exactly where you please. It's very important, once again, that you don't stain the lace, because as you part this lace and wear it for your desired style, you want to make sure that it looks like your real scalp. So this is it for the how to dye a lace closure video. For your hair extension needs, make sure to visit mrsrutters.com. This is Breanna Rutter from howtoblackhair.com. Thanks for watching.